Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective.
Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Wanted to get this thing started early, and here is why. I'm about ready to have tree people cutting outside my office. I changed the settings on my microphone. I don't know if it's going to work. It's probably not going to work. If it doesn't work, I'll record this show later today because I know it's very important. Everyone wants to hear what's happening on Monday. So what we're going to try to do is go through it. I'm going to wait till the blasting starts outside, and you'll have to tell me whether or not you're able to hear it. If it's bad, I'll just record the show later today. You'll be able to access it at the same place as always on the YouTube page, youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. On your podcast network, just type in Fantasy Sports Daily. Obviously, over at FantasyGuru.com, click that Elite Plus tab at the top of the page, and you'll be able to find the show and all of that. So we're rocking and rolling here. You'll have to let me know in the chat. I got the streaming room open here. If it's unbearable, I apologize. Again, they kind of showed up when they weren't supposed to, but you can't turn them away. We got a bunch of, for those people that don't know, we live up kind of at the top of the mountain, and we have this beautiful view of the valley, and it's time for the trees to be cut. They've grown up, started to impact the view and all that. And it's one of those things where you probably all had people cut trees at your house before too. It's like they kind of just show up. So they kind of just showed up. So I apologize. The guy's climbing up the tree outside the door right here. I can see it. He's just walked up the tree moments ago. So when this starts, you will again have to let me know whether or not you can hear it. If it's bad, I will stop the broadcast and just record it later. I've changed the settings on the microphone. Hopefully that'll help. That's why it's in my face as well. I'm doubting this is going to work, but we're giving it a shot here early. Again, I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com, and normally this show is on Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. I'm on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, as you well know, probably by this point in time. Justin Fensterman is on with us every Wednesdays. He and Rich Miletto are on Wednesdays. I'm on Tuesdays with Armando Marsal, Thursdays with Tyler Beaker, Fridays with Russell Clay, and Mondays, it's just me. If we get a chance to get to it today, here's what we're talking about. It's the game action on Sunday. It's what we do every day on Monday. For those people new to the show, welcome. For those of you that are returning, thank you for coming back. On Mondays, I sit here and I just give my thoughts about the game action, what we saw, some of the bigger storylines. We'll obviously have more information about this whole situation on the Elite Sports Show on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. That's Monday through Friday. With Jeff Mance from 3 to 6 Eastern on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, Elite Sports. I'm on with him every Wednesday, so that's why I'm not here. I'm over there for 3 hours. Jeff will break this down. He does basically the same thing I do. He just does it over 3 hours. Probably does it better than me too, but he does it over 3 hours. We get the opportunity to kind of go through the games and pick out one player plus minus on each side of things right now. Sean, by the way, before we get into the game action, says, Browns offense actually looks competent, huh? Yeah, right? It's the second year in a row this has happened where Deshaun Watson has gone down with an injury, and Joe Flacco last year and this year Jameis Winston. There you go. I mean, it's, there are rumors out there that Deshaun Watson may not be back. Like they might try to cut him, the contract, all the details. Like I don't even know how that all works, but we'll see how the Browns play this out. But the bottom line is the offense does look better with Winston. For those of you that missed the game, Hamilton had a ball right in his hands. For those of you that missed it, right in his hands, would have won the football game for the Ravens, dropped it. Was one of the worst drops on a potential interception that the world has ever seen. And right after that, Tillman scored a touchdown to win the game for the Browns. So the Ravens still could have won that football game yesterday. But yeah, the offense looked much better. Winston threw the ball for 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Performed very, very well in that game yesterday. Tony C said, "Go Bears." The Bears lost that football game. We'll get to it, obviously, 18-15 to Washington. And, if you're a Bears fan, more power to you. But, you're getting linemen. You're at the 1 yard line. You're giving linemen the ball. Again, I said this way back in the day when they gave the ball to the fridge in the Super Bowl and they didn't give the touchdown to Walter Payton. Just play football straight. Like, what is wrong? Why don't teams play football straight anymore? I don't understand this. If you can't get 1 yard with your lead running back who ran for 129 yards, if you can't get 1 yard with your lead running back or your backup running back who had a rushing touchdown himself and Rashawn Johnson, if you can't get 1 yard as a running play, pass the ball. Don't give it to your offensive lineman. Don't give it to your 33rd string tight end. All these what are we doing? the more complicated teams make, they think they're being cool. They're getting on ESPN, the highlights and all that. Haha, that's all fun on the sidelines, hug each other out. Play football straight. If you can't beat a team straight, you're not going to beat them trickery long term. There's not. And we'll talk about that if we get to it, if the audio doesn't get crazier when we talk about Sam LaPorta in a few minutes. Play the game straight. I don't know why more teams don't play the straight. And you're right, Sean. If you're using gadget plays, your offense is bad. Truth. If you have to use gadget plays, you can't beat the opponent. And you're hoping that trickeration is going to get it done. Sometimes it does. And that's why teams continue to do it. But can you imagine the type of football we see now ever happening? And when I was a kid, if this happened in 1985, the coach would be fired. Like if you're giving the ball, like Refrigerator Perry was the only guy in football because he was this really athletic 320-pound guy or whatever he was. He was the only guy in football that did this, unless my memory's failing me. And even when they were doing it, it was kind of like, ha, ha, he, ha, ha, ha. Play football straight. You got a Hall of Famer and Walter Payton. Give him the football. Anyway, the guys are about ready to get started out there. I guess we're about ready to get started in here to see what happens. We got one guy. I'll give you a little play-by-play before we jump in here. Those of you on the podcast, I apologize if this ends up going up. We got one gentleman. It's a company. They're all wearing orange. That's their color. Orange helmets, orange sweatshirts. That's to tell people not to obviously hurt them. We have a bunch of trees in the backyard. This tree that they're working on is an oak tree. It's probably about 80 feet tall. We got one gentleman who's down on the ground holding on to the ropes. He's doing all kinds of knots like he's a seaman. The other gentleman's up in the tree. We've got a third gentleman who just walked down past here with a we got a bunch of rope going up. Oh man, rope's going up. We got another guy who's going with he's putting his helmet on now too. He took a ladder down. They're going to cut down some of the other trees that are blocking some of the view too. So we've got big oak trees. We've got some short eucalyptus trees. We've got some tall eucalyptus trees. We basically have a backyard that is framed by trees. So it's framed by 75, 80-foot trees. Then we have a bunch of trees kind of keeping the hillside, stable because that's what the roots do, right? So we cut those down. So we have this beautiful view of the valley, mountains in the distance. At nighttime, the fog rolls in because on the other side of the mountains is the bay. Actually, it's the ocean, excuse me. It's the Pacific Ocean on the other side of the mountains. So that rolls in. If we look at the front yard, they're doing work in the front yard too. If we look at the front yard from our driveway, you can see the San Francisco Bay. So that's from the front yard. The backyard's got this beautiful view. But the trees, so we have these actual trees on the sides too, which are really cool because they kind of give us privacy from the neighbors and they really frame the picture very well. So anyway, they're walking around. I'm trying to stall, but I don't want to stall too long in case this actually works. So I guess we'll get going here. The guys are walking around trying to get ready. They've been doing it for about a half hour. I thought they'd be started by now. I see chainsaws on the ground. Oh boy, let's get going. Let's talk about the game. And again, for those of you just joining me now, we do have these tree people out in the backyard. They showed up a little unexpected. If it's you can't hear me, I've changed the microphone settings. I got it up in my face here. I'm hoping this will help. If you can't hear me once it starts, I will re-record this and post it later today. Okay, so I apologize. They showed up unannounced, and here we go. Eagles defeated the Bengals 37-17. Jalen Hurts. I had I had a handful of Jalen Hurts questions of people saying, do I play Jalen Hurts? And it's like I said repeatedly, yes, you always play Jalen Hurts. And I know he threw the ball 14 times last week and only threw the ball 20 times this week. He produced 4 touchdowns. Now, 3 of them were rushing too. And I know a lot of people are in leagues with only 4 points for passing touchdowns. So you'd rather have them rushing in anyway. 3 rushing touchdowns for Jalen Hurts. You never bench Jalen Hurts. Period. Even if he's throwing the ball 20 times a week, because what happened yesterday can happen. Tush pushes, the short runs, all that kind of stuff. He had a marvelous statistical game in the fantasy world. Davante Smith had a touchdown, 6 catches. Antonio Brown, 5 for 84 was fine. The loser here was Saquon Barkley. Not that a guy that had 100 scrimmage yards and 25 touches is really a loser, but in the fantasy space, he didn't get in the end zone because of the 3 touchdowns of Jalen Hurts. So goes it. They'll be stealing from each other, right? Barkley will steal some from Hurts. Hurts will steal some from Barkley. Yesterday was Hurts doing the stealing with those 3 rushing touchdowns. Wonderful fantasy effort. On the other side of things, Mike Gesicki had to step up because T. Higgins, who fancies himself as an elite football player, doesn't play. He was out yet again yesterday. He's looking to get this huge payday in the offseason. He's not going to get it. He's not going to get it. He can't stay on the field. So we'll deal with that when we get there. But yesterday, T. Higgins was out. He had the quad issue, so he was out of the game yesterday. So what happened is Mike Gesicki went for 7 catches, 73 yards on his 8 targets. Now, Gesicki appears to be, let's go run to the waiver wire and grab him guy, because that's a huge effort from a tight end. He looked good. He's athletic, all that kind of stuff. But no, Gesicki's strong performances. He had another game earlier this year where he caught, 7 or 8 passes that game. 7 for 91, I think it was. The big games he's had is when Higgins have been out of the lineup. When Higgins is in the lineup, Gesicki's catching 2 passes for 12 yards. So be very cautious of getting overly excited about Gesicki. He needs to be out there on his own with Higgins out of the lineup for him to truly have fantasy value. And we saw that again yesterday. I think we're about ready to get started outside. There's more talking. Ropes are being tightened. I think we're about ready to see if this is going to happen or not. The Ravens lost 24-29 to the Browns. The Browns improved to 2-6. The Ravens fell to 5-3. Terrible loss for the Ravens. They should have won the football game. They're a better team than the Browns. We all know that. I talked earlier about Hamilton dropping that ball that could have sealed the game on the pick. Rashad Bateman lost a ball in the sun that bounced off his head. Lamar Jackson played a great football game again, but they lost by 5 points to the Browns, 24-29. Wanted to talk about Mark Andrews, who, Mark Andrews unlikely. Likely had 4 targets, Andrews 5. Likely had 4 catches, Andrews 5. Likely had 47 yards, Andrews 36. But Andrews got in the end zone. Now, there was an end zone target to Likely that wasn't converted, but Andrews scored a touchdown again. And I think that this is, Kohler only played 10 snaps yesterday, but something to keep in mind is that there's drilling starting. Hopefully that's not too bad. Are we doing okay? We're doing all right? I don't think that's too bad right now. Hopefully it doesn't get much worse than that. That's a chainsaw, I guess. So that was drilling. Kohler only played 10 snaps. What's basically happening is when the Ravens are behind in the game, and they were behind yesterday, or close, they run a lot of 22 and 21 personnel, and Andrews doesn't play a lot in those. That's when Charlie Kohler's on the field. So the game flow really matters to Andrews, but the bottom line is Andrews got in the end zone again. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Sound good right now. We'll see if it continues that way. I'm hopeful to get through it. We'll keep our fingers crossed. If so, you just got a couple of extra minutes of me babbling on, giving play-by-play on trees, which is probably what you all tuned in for, right? So let's keep it going here. But Mark Andrews got in the end zone again. And really, that's the deal with Andrews. It's that, there is some growing consistency in workload, and he's being utilized as a red zone target, as he should be. There's still 3 tight ends being utilized. Isaiah Likely is not going away. There's certainly going to be weeks where it's 4 catches for 28 yards for Andrews, and he's a disappointment. So he is very touchdown reliant, way more touchdown reliant than we anticipated him being when the season began. But hopefully you were able to keep hold of him through the down times, because now he's at least back to being a starting option. On the other side of things, we talked earlier about the fact the Browns had the 29 points and Winston threw for 334 and 3 touchdowns. The big recipient there was Elijah Moore, who kind of came out of nowhere to catch 8 balls for 85 yards. Moore actually led the team with 12 targets. So he's not the worst addition in the world, right? But the lead guy, the player that everyone was adding last week, and if they didn't, they're going to be going crazy this week, it's Cedric Tillman, who is one of Jeff Mann's guys. Out of the draft, Jeff was very high about talking about him and his prospects. He ended up getting buried on the chart here, the depth chart at the receiver position. The trade of Cooper opens up an opportunity for Cedric Tillman. 9 targets, 7 catches, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns, the winning touchdown included. And we're off and running with Cedric Tillman. Hopefully you added him last week. I think everyone did. We talked a lot about him on this show and Discord and the articles over at fantasyguru.com, which, by the way, you go to fantasyguru.com, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. You can still sign up. You can always send a note to support@fantasyguru.com, support@fantasyguru.com, and say, hey, I'd like to sign up for this package or that package. What can you guys do? We're here to help. Seasonal football, DFS football, wagering football. Don't forget, we have the MVP package available right now at fantasyguru.com. You buy basketball, you get hockey for free. You buy hockey, you get basketball for free. 2 for 1 there. We obviously got the other sports there at the website. You get the all-in package, all that kind of stuff. Support@fantasyguru.com if you want to get involved. Bottom line is we were very active telling all of you all folks, everyone, to get Cedric Tillman, and he came through with a massive fantasy effort yesterday. I think the most heartening news is that Jameis Winston, as predicted, flung the ball over the field, and he flung it 9 times to Tillman. And Tillman basically took over the Amari Cooper role. There were multiple passes that Winston threw, including the one to Hamilton, that could have been intercepted. So, this could look totally different. But Winston's going to chuck it, and they're going to live or die by the chucking. So Tillman right now is looking like a pretty solid wide receiver 3. And we'll see how that goes based upon matchups and how he's utilized moving forward. Next game up is Tennessee and Detroit. Tennessee, Spears was out of this game. They lost DeAndre Hopkins with the trade to Kansas City. Chainsaws are going. We doing okay? We're doing okay? All right, I think we're doing okay. That was a chainsaw in the front yard. We got a lot going on. We got like 8 guys here at the house. They're down their quarterback, Will Levis. We'll see when he can return from that shoulder injury. Mason Rudolph is dropping the ball. He's turning the ball over. He's running the football. He had a rushing touchdown. He had a passing touchdown. He threw a couple of picks. But lo and behold, Calvin Ridley, who they basically said, hey, man, we're not gonna target this guy as relentless as we have, but we got to win football games still. They felt like maybe they were reacting too much to the fact he wasn't getting the ball. Well, Mason Rudolph didn't attend that meeting because he said, screw that. 15 targets to Calvin Ridley yesterday. 10 catches for 143 yards. Nick Westbrook-Akine got in the end zone, and he played every snap. So Westbrook-Akine is now the number 2 receiver for the Titans. There's no doubt about that. Maybe that changes a little bit when Treylon Burks is back. We'll see. Burks is obviously on the injured list right now. Not saying NWI is a start, but for those of you in very deep leagues, he's the number 2 receiver on an NFL team. So, but yeah, the big story was Calvin Ridley, 10 catches, 143 yards. Boom, boom, boom for Calvin Ridley. Now, on the other side of things, I'm sure a lot of you didn't get a chance to watch the Lions game live, right? And you're sitting there and you look at the scoreboard, and the Lions win. They move to 6-1, and it's 52-14. And you're thinking, hell freaking yeah. There were all kinds of defensive work that the Lions did. There was all kinds of special teams work that the Lions did. There were busted coverage. I don't think the Titans covered the Lions on any offensive touchdown they scored yesterday. Sam LaPorta was wide open on his touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs didn't get touched on his touchdown. Rakeem Raymond was wide open on his touchdown. Like, these guys were just running wide open. The Titans didn't cover anybody. Jared Goff threw for 3 scores and 85 yards. Only threw 15 passes. Jahmyr Gibbs ran for 127 yards and score. He only had 11 carries. David Montgomery had a touchdown. He only had 9 carries. They throttled the Titans without doing anything on offense. They had like 225 yards of offense and put up 52 points. Now, I want to talk about Sam LaPorta for a second because on the surface, this is great. Now, with Jameson Williams out yesterday and going to miss another game because of the suspension, maybe we see another strong effort from LaPorta moving forward in terms of workload. 6 targets yesterday, 6 catches, 48 yards, and a touchdown. Sam LaPorta has been one of the bigger disappointments in the fantasy space in 2024. Jeff Mans, we at fantasyguru.com said you're foolish to pay the price at LaPorta. There's sound from Jeff saying this like back in May. Like, this is, we all said don't draft Sam LaPorta at his ADP. I know a lot of people still did it, and it's been a horribly disappointing effort. Yesterday, things turned, 648 and a touchdown. Let's go back a little bit with LaPorta. That's the 2nd touchdown of the season. If you missed it yesterday, his touchdown was on a pass from David Montgomery. Gave the ball to David Montgomery. He floated out. He threw a touchdown pass to Sam LaPorta. The trickery we were talking about earlier. The other touchdown that Sam LaPorta scored was on a double flea flicker. So that was a trick play too, where LaPorta just ran down the sidelines and no one covered him because of everything. So LaPorta's both those touchdowns have not been real touchdowns now. You know what I'm saying? They haven't been straight up touchdowns, right? They've been trickeration. That's what they're having to do to get LaPorta into the end zone, which is so strange after double-digit touchdowns as a rookie last year. Great to see the effort yesterday. Be very cautious because, again, Williams is coming back at some point. Yesterday, St. Brown scored a 1-yard touchdown after LaPorta was tackled. So he almost had a real touchdown. He got tackled at the 1-yard line. St. Brown got in the end zone after that. So LaPorta scored, Raymond scored, Wright scored, St. Brown scored, Gibbs scored, Montgomery scored. Everyone scored, but it was a disappointing game when you consider they had 52 points on offense. Next up, Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans. Anthony Richardson sucks. Not fair. Probably not true. But he sucks as an NFL quarterback at this point in time. He just sucks. He went 10 for 32 yesterday. He, late in the game, was running, trying to get some yardage to get him into field goal range to tie the game up. Didn't run out of bounds, stayed in bounds. Cost him time on the clock. He's making bad decisions. He's flinging the ball over the place. He can't complete passes. He looks visibly frustrated on the sidelines. There are multiple times teammates had to talk to him and try. he's just not it. And, the Colts fell to 4-4. They lost that game. The Texans moved to 6-2. And I still think they start him. I don't think that Flacco's going down. Going in, I guess the better way to put it, because I think that the Colts are still trying to figure this out with Richardson. And, if they make the playoffs, it's great. It's not their expectation. The problem we have in the fantasy space is Richardson is so bad right now. He's so ineffective right now that it's impossible at this point in time, unless you have a 2-quarterback league. And then even in that situation, it's impossible to start Richardson. Even in Superflex leagues, we had Richardson, ranked quarterback 20 or something like that. And it was kind of, for me personally, I don't know what the ranking is going to say for week number 9. But it was kind of, for me personally, like the last time I could even recommend him in a Superflex league. Like, I know the potential. He ran 6 times for 45 yards. I know the potential. And as soon as you take him out of your Superflex lineup, he'll go for 23 points. Okay, that's how it goes. But as a passer, he's woefully inept right now. He's woeful. Pittman had 1 catch for 16 yards. Somehow Josh Downs had 4 catches for 109 yards and a touchdown. The reason being he was uncovered on his touchdown. That's why that happened. It wasn't some great play. He was uncovered. And I think I started writing my matchup article for week 9. I think I put that he was as uncovered as any player who's ever played the game of football, something like that. Like, when I say uncovered, he was uncovered. It wasn't like some guy was 10 feet behind him. He was just running. The camera didn't have a defensive player in the frame. Just running. Richardson is killing this offense. Jonathan Taylor returned, looked great. 100 yards and a touchdown. He looked great. Making moves, making cuts. Ankle looked totally healed. He's about the only guy you can start, even with the big effort from Downs. Don't mistake that for him having some great games. 69 yards of those 109 were on, again, completely blown coverage by the Texans. On the other side of things, Tank Dell, we're still awaiting news. We haven't heard officially. Again, it's 9:20 in the morning here. Let me do a quick look. Haven't seen any update as of right now as to what the injury is to Stephon Diggs. It was a non-contact knee injury. A lot of times that is a significant injury when the guy just plants his foot and the knee goes. Usually we get very nervous right away about an ACL tear. We'll see with Diggs, but it's likely to be bad news with Diggs. Obviously, Nico Collins is out with his hamstring injury. He's still going to miss at least 1 more game. So what does this team do? Like, where do they turn? Well, Tank Dell's going to have to be even a bigger piece of this offense. He only had 4 targets yesterday. He did get in the end zone. But it was, 435 and 1. He has not stepped up as we hoped / anticipated at fantasyguru.com or in the fantasy space. Everyone. It wasn't just us. He hasn't stepped up with the loss of Collins. Well, if Diggs is down, Dell's going to have to step up. And the problem is, as we've talked about with Dell a lot, is what is Dell, 5'10", 165? Like, how much of a stepping up can you do? T.Y. Hilton did a lot on the other side. T.Y. Hilton for years was that size and had great numbers. So I'm not saying that Dell can't become the one of this team if necessary, but there are limitations there because physically he's not 6'3" and 215 pounds. So that'll be the big situation to monitor. Hutchinson got more involved. Woods was out there. Mechie, this could be a scenario much like the Buccaneers. Week 9 for the Texans could be much like the Buccaneers, with them really struggling to find a receiving core that they can count on. The Packers defeated the Jaguars 30-27. Jordan Love was the big story on the Packers side of things. The Packers won this game despite Jordan Love getting hurt. Looked like he tweaked his knee early in the game. They called his injury a groin injury. For anyone that watched this game, he got bumped by a defensive player after the play, stumbled over to the sidelines and got within about 8 feet of the sidelines and laid down on the field. It was bizarre. He did not get blasted. He did not get hit hard. Even if you've got a groin injury or something, I don't know why he couldn't have walked the extra 8 feet off, limped, hopped, asked someone to help him. He just laid down. It was just weird. The reports after the game suggest that there's hope that he'll be able to play the next game for the Packers. But the injury is not that significant. Again, me watching it, that's exactly what I would say. But again, the way he went down like he was shot. Malik Willis, by the way, came in and helped this team win a football game. And Malik Willis looks totally different than Malik Willis with the Titans. And it just goes to show you, for those of you that don't really believe in coaching, that those of you that think, it's all about the athleticism of the player and everything Malik Willis looked like he was going to be out of the NFL in 2 years with the Titans. With the Packers, he looks competent. great job of the coaching staff yet again there. We'll have to see with Jordan Love. By the way, this offense, 2 catches for Reed. Dontavian Wicks, 2 catches. So disappointing. You can't trust anybody in this wide receiving core, and that's the problem, the continuing problem. The numbers might be there at the end because of the splash plays and the splash games these guys have, but week to week, it's just a mess of the receiving core of the Packers. On the other side of things, Brian Thomas, well, here's what we know right now. Christian Kirk is done. He broke his collarbone, so he's done for the season. There's a shoulder issue for Gabriel Davis. He played like 9 snaps. Brian Thomas had 3 catches for 60 yards in the touchdown. He hurt his chest on his touchdown catch, was unable to return to the game after hurting his catch. So as we sit here right now on a Monday morning, it is possible that number 1, number 2, and number 3 in the receiving core for the Jaguars aren't just playing. They're not playing this coming week. We know, of course, again, Christian Kirk isn't. Davis and Thomas is to be determined. Parker Washington stepped up. Maybe we get more 2 tight end sets. With Strange involved, he got 5 passes yesterday. Evan Ingram with the beautiful touchdown grab. For those of you that didn't see it, watch the highlight. He leaped over 2 defenders. I don't know, his vert. Evan Ingram's got like 35, 40-inch vert. Like, he was up there. Great catch by him. Lawrence goes for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, and now we have to wait and see what the receiving core looks like. Obviously, Thomas is the huge blow. No one's playing Gabe Davis. You've got him on your roster, but you're not counting on him. In the case of Kirk, that now we don't have to keep worrying about, is this going to be the week he catches 5 passes or 2? Kirk's now out of the mix. It comes down to Brian Thomas, who could be looking at 10 targets a week, if he's healthy, but we can need more information there. Fingers crossed that it's not a significant injury that costs them game action. Arizona Cardinals defeated the Miami Dolphins 28-27. The guys are just an update on the guys outside. Because of the way the houses are, I think we're in a good spot. They didn't bring the crane into the backyard to cut the trees. The guy climbed up the tree and he's using a hand chainsaw. And because of that, he's cutting and stopping and cutting and stopping. And I don't think I'm hearing from everyone in the chat room that it looks okay, that it doesn't, it's not sounding terrible, which I hope is the case. I think we got lucky here. So we'll keep our fingers crossed we'll be able to get through this. By the way, Greg Martinez says AR tapped out. Claimed he couldn't get his breath at one point. Anthony Richardson, that was weird. That's what he claimed. And like you said, Sean, right now, he ain't it. Back to the Cardinals game, 28-27 over the Dolphins. Look, Kyler Murray threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. For those people watching the game, right? It's not. He just flings the ball up. He's just flinging it up. But again, as I said even in the first breath is he's not it. Kyler Murray. Second breath is you've got to start him. Continue 302. I had him as a QB1 this week. We had him as a QB1 this week. Marvin Harrison comes through 6 catches, 111 yards and a touchdown. Beautiful touchdown grab. Multiple diving catches when Kyler's just flinging it up. And when I do this, I can throw. I played baseball my whole life. I don't throw like this, but that's how Kyler Murray throws. In the fantasy space, 6, 111 and a touchdown is great for Marvin Harrison. 7 targets on 36 passes, okay, but they got to get him the ball more. Michael Wilson went 5 for 31 and a touchdown, and then Greg Dortch had 2 targets. That's it. They play this whole football game, quarterback those 36 passes, and he throws 15 of them to wide receivers. It's I'd love to see more consistency with Harrison in terms of his usage. I think we all would. But that dude's a smooth route runner. He's got good hands. He made that great diving touchdown grab in the corner of the end zone. Harrison came through yesterday and should, again, continue to be in lineups. I think we had him as wide receiver 23 yesterday, 24. He should continue to be in lineups every week, even though he was overdrafted. We're beyond that at this point. Tua Tagovailoa returns. What's the verdict on his return? Well, the offense looked much better. They actually were able to move the football. Achane ran for 97 yards. Mostert had a couple of rushing touchdowns. Tua had a passing score. They threw for 234 yards, which is a little disappointing on 38 passes. And again, they lost the game. But the offense was back to being okay. Jalen Waddle had 4 catches for 45 yards, 2 drops. Oof. Tyreek Hill, 6 for 72. Okay. You have to look at both Waddle and Hill's performances as well as Tua's and say, okay, we got one under our belts. Let's go. Let's move forward. That's kind of the floor for all 3 of them moving forward. So have the expectations, or keep the expectations higher than yesterday, and feel pretty good about the next effort, them actually getting there. good first effort, good return for Tua Tagovailoa. He ran the ball a couple times, took some hits, didn't seem shy. So that part passed in flying colors. Things should get better for the trio of big guys at the top. Though again, Davante, he had 16 touches, 150 yards of offense and a touchdown. Dude is good. Got to stay on the field. The Jets and the Patriots. Patriots and Jets are both 2-6. And don't want to belabor the point here, but Aaron Rodgers ain't it. And I know it's so funny. A lot of people, I saw people talking about Tyrod Taylor on social media, like replace Rodgers with Tyrod Taylor. So there's that faction. Then there's the other faction that said, well, blame the running game, blame the pass catchers, blame the coaching staff, blame the defense. Everyone's to blame. But they lost a football game to the Patriots. They fired their head coach. They changed play callers. They brought in Rodgers' best friend. They still lose football games. And that's what I want to talk about, Davante Adams. I mean, you know, the real issue here, the pullback. The real issue is for the Jets, their offense is pretty much broken. It's just an offense. It's not broken. That's not fair. It's just an offense. This is not offense 8 in the NFL. This is offense 18. It's just an offense. And they kind of live or die at this point based upon Breece Hall, to be truthful. Because their quarterback is not a game winner. Aaron Rodgers is not a game winner. He can lead a drive at the end of the game to win a game, but he's not a leader. He's not out there 233 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, he's just a guy, right? Breece Hall had a good game, 16 carries for 80 yards. I only had 1 catch for 9 yards, which is kind of strange, but they only threw the ball 28 times. They didn't establish much. Braylon Allen, for some reason, had 12 touches yesterday. He averaged 2.5 yards a carry. Like, he got the touchdown. I don't know where that came from, because the last couple of games, Hall had been the guy, and they went back to Allen a little bit, which is very weird. I see a huge branch coming down beside the house here. Not huge. It's probably double the width of a baseball bat, but a good 12 feet long. Babe Ruth couldn't swing that. But going back to Adams, he was supposed to help reinvigorate the offense. He hasn't. He was supposed to be a weekly starter in the fantasy space, and now he, in my mind, he still is. But my expectations are that he was going to be a borderline wide receiver 1-2. He's been a 2-3, and I don't know if that changes. Adams, 4 catches for 54 yards. I wonder if he's happy he got traded. Oh, we're about to get a chainsaw fired up. How's that sound, folks? Are we okay? I'll wait for a second for someone to reply before I keep talking. Okay? Oh, we stopped. Okay, we'll just keep going. I don't know if Adams... And by the way, have you ever watched a fantasy broadcast that had live play-by-play of tree cutting? Come on, that's the kind of excitement we bring you at fantasyguru.com. Adams, 454. He had 6 targets. Wilson had 8. Wilson caught 5 balls. Wilson had 113 yards. The touchdowns went to Gibson, who played like 4 snaps and got the touchdown. And Ty Conklin. Now, the part that I don't understand the most is the Adams thing. Like, 6 targets, 4 catches. Like, Rodgers wanted this guy. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate that. Sweet. I'm glad we can't hear things. Thank you for updating me. I don't know, man. I don't know how Adams comes in and just floats away. Very, very strange here. Let's look at the snap counts real quickly for the Jets. The receiving core. Wilson and Adams were separated by 3 snaps and 1 route run. And so they were on the field the same amount. They ran the same amount of snaps. They didn't have Lazard on the field, so Williams played a bigger role than I think anticipated, though he didn't get a target. Davante Adams, oof. We're still starting him, but the expectations are getting much lower for him. On the other side of things, Ramondre Stevenson, I know the Patriots aren't good, and I know the Jets are a good defense. And Ramondre Stevenson ran for 2.4 yards a carry. Oh, look at this. Jay says, Jay's a landscaper and an arborist. They love the tree talk. Well, good. And by the way, everyone, if you're going to do this work, get an arborist, because if you just randomly cut branches off for the view or whatever, you kill the tree, right? And there's certain times of year, like we talked to these people 6 weeks ago, there's certain times of year that you have to cut certain trees. I'm sure Jay knows about this. But don't just hire your gardener to cut the trees down. Not only is that dangerous, you're also potentially damaging your trees. So there's my Smokey Bear comment for the day as well. Back to the Ramondre Stevenson, it was a tough matchup. And there were a lot of people that just didn't want to start Stevenson, which I get. But Stevenson had 23 touches yesterday, and he scored twice. Again, very moderate, 2.5 yards a carry. Didn't do anything on the ground, but they kept giving him the ball. They lost Drake May to the head injury early. That led to the offense being more stagnant with Jacoby Brissett. It might have led to more work for Stevenson, though less effective work. He scored twice. Ramondre Stevenson is the running back 2 you don't want to play who's a running back 2. So remember that. It's kind of like the Alexander Mattison thing. It's like Mattison keeps getting 19 touches every week. It was terrible yesterday. We had a yard to carry yesterday, and I'd much rather play Stevenson than Mattison. But these kind of guys, when you're getting 18-plus touches a week, it's really tough not to play. Really tough. Next game we're going to talk about here is the Falcons and Bucks. Falcons defeated the Bucks 31-26. Kyle Pitts, 4 catches, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's finally happening. And why is it happening? Is because Desmond Ridder, who took a snap yesterday for the Raiders, Desmond Ridder is no longer the quarterback of this team. Arthur Smith is no longer the offensive coordinator of this team. Now we have a talent at the tight end position we can actually utilize. Now, he almost lost his second touchdown. Almost got run down from behind. And he didn't hustle last week on a pass either that could have turned into a touchdown. So we have some focus issues if we're being kind. If we're not being kind, we got some concentration/effort issues with Pitts. Maybe he's just euphoric because he's finally producing and he can't believe it. But he's an every week starter. And I know there was a period of time he was drafted to be that this year, started the season slow. And I know a lot of people were very nervous with Pitts. Very nervous. He's finally come around. 2 touchdowns yesterday. Again, 4 for 91. Drake London, 4 catches for 34 yards. He had his first down effort in a month. Mooney scored a touchdown, had 86 yards. He was fine. Bijan Robinson had his 100 yards of offense and his touchdown. He was fine. Pitts was the big story. And with each passing week, it's starting to look more and more like we're finally getting the production we anticipated when he was drafted, 1. And 2, despite yesterday with National Tight End Day, which is the dumbest freaking thing I've ever heard. I heard that mentioned 912 times yesterday, and it's not real. It's fake. Who cares? Somehow yesterday on National Tight End Day, there were more receptions by a tight end than any game in 20 years, any day in 20 years or something like that. But overall, the tight end position, as we're all aware, is still down. So even if Pitts is not a superstar in terms of his solo production, his production in the context of the season, bordering on superstar moving forward, at least potentially. On the other side of things, Jalen McMillan was the hot waiver wire pickup. Obviously, Godwin is done for the season. Evans is out with the hamstring injury. We knew that Otton was going to see a heavy workload. He had a huge game, though. He had 10 targets, 9 catches for 81 yards, and 2 scores. A huge game for him, bigger than anyone could have expected there. But the real question was what was going to happen at the receiving corps. Sterling Shepard was in and out of the lineup yesterday, a little bit of health woes, so there's something to keep an eye on moving forward. McMillan ended up leading the wideouts in targets with 7. He caught 4 balls for 35 yards. Now, Baker Mayfield could have had a touchdown pass to McMillan. He just threw a terrible pass. So that 4 for 35 could have been 5 for 90 and a touchdown. That being said, it was a disappointing effort for McMillan. It's a disappointing effort for all the receivers. Jarrett had 3 for 58. Palmer basically played the whole time. He played Mike Evans' role. 2 catches, 29 yards, didn't do anything. Ryan Miller, 3 catches, 19 yards. Like, no one did anything in this game despite 330 yards and 3 touchdowns from Mayfield on a day where he threw the ball 50 times. None of the receivers did anything. McMillan, little disappointing there. I think McMillan was right on the cusp. I think we had him at wide receiver 39-ish. Right on the cusp of being an active play yesterday. Certainly a disappointing effort for him. But he was on the field and he did get the targets. Didn't take over the slot. That was Shepard. But McMillan played, whether he was outside or in the slot, all game long. And a passable first effort there as a replacement with the need that the team had. Chris Olave came alive. The Saints didn't. But Chris Olave came alive as the Chargers destroyed the Saints 26-8. Spencer Rattler is terrible. We think Anthony Richardson's bad. Spencer Rattler's terrible. And again, it's not this guy's fault. He's young at the start of his career. I don't think much is really expected of him long term. But he was basically replaced yesterday because he sucked. Jake Haener, for the second straight game, looked better than Rattler. We still don't know if Derek Carr's going to be able to play next game. It might happen. I think that's the hope. The next game the Saints play, that Carr's be out there, but it might be Haener. I can't really see them going back to Rattler at this point. Taysom Hill returned through a pass for 3 yards, had 4 carries for 20 yards, caught 2 balls for 21 yards, didn't do anything. The real storyline was Chris Olave, who came back from his head injury. I know a lot of people were very nervous about playing Olave because of the spotty quarterback play. Totally fair. Difficult matchup against the Chargers. Totally fair. We still had Olave was inside the top 25 wide receivers last week or yesterday. And he went 8 catches for 107 yards. Had a strong game. He had 14 targets. Huge target total. They threw the ball, 42 times yesterday. And he had 14 targets on the 33% target share will get it done. But Olave is just a guy you start because he's the only reliable pass catcher on this team. He is somebody who's gone at 80 and 1,000 here a couple of times. Like, I'm very surprised how many people just don't want to play Olave. I get it, but I have Chris Olave in one league, and I had no problem with him being active yesterday. So Chris Olave, 8 catches for 107 yards, should be fine moving forward. And obviously his outlook stays strong when Derek Carr returns. He's a bottom-level wide receiver too. I think a lot of people don't necessarily look at him like that. On the other side of things, Justin Herbert all of a sudden is throwing the ball more. The Chargers won this football game again. They beat a team that they should have beaten, 26-8. They moved to 4-3. Herbert ran for 49 yards on 4 carries, showing athleticism. He threw for 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks, throwing dimes all over the place. That guy is really, really, really good. The numbers may not be there because of the style of offense and the coaching staff and all, but he is good. You can't watch a game. Like, you watch Justin Herbert, if you actually watch him play a football game, and you see his movement in the pocket, his movement out of the pocket, his athleticism. He had a 38-yard run yesterday. Took on the defender at the end of the play, didn't even go out of bounds. You see him flinging the ball when he's in the pocket, driving the football, when he's rolling out. He's the truth. Now, whether the numbers are good enough the rest of the way to be a strong start, that's to be determined because of the offense they run here. Herbert is somebody that I think is, the last couple of weeks in particular, they've run the ball a little less and thrown it a lot more. So I think Herbert is clearly in the super flex option now. You can't put him in the QB1 zone at the moment because of the way the offense is likely to operate most weeks. But he is absolutely an ascending player after a terribly slow start to the season. On the next game, Buffalo beat Seattle, and woof. Seattle got stomped out in their home yard, I guess, better way to say it, home stadium. We don't say park or yard in football, do we? They were at home, and they got stomped out 31-10, and it really wasn't close. It really wasn't close. The Bills moved to 6-2. The Seahawks fell to 4-4. On the Bills side of things, Khalil Shakir, and look, this is Tommy Callahan, right? Everyone has Tommy Callahan on the team. Raise your hand, you got Tommy Callahan. We talked all preseason about Shakir. Everyone drafted Shakir. And then some people, we got good efforts, you got injured, okay. Then they added Amari Cooper. And they added Amari Cooper, and I don't know, I'm guessing. A third of the people, not fair, totally guessing. A third of the people that drafted Khalil Shakir based upon our recommendation at fantasyguru.com wanted to drop him when Cooper came. And it's like, okay, I get it, but no, they're totally different players. Cooper's a guy that stretches the field. He's going downfield. He's drawing attention. Shakir's running east-west at the line of scrimmage, catching short. They're totally different players. They can both function in the same offense. And while 10 targets that Shakir got yesterday are very unlikely to occur moving forward because he only had 2 targets to Amari Cooper. And it's much more likely to be the other way around, if we're being honest. But Shakir had 9 catches for 107 yards. And, I told people in the Discord over fantasyguru.com, I did tell some people to drop Shakir. Why? Because I don't know how some of you had 6 top 30 receivers. More power to you for putting a great team together. I don't get that at all. I'm going to take a sip of water here before I choke. I don't know how some of you built the teams you built. But Khalil Shakir, as I said to almost everyone that wanted to drop him, shouldn't be dropped. Yesterday we saw why. Coleman had 5 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. Nice touchdown grab. Dropped another ball he should have caught, but nice touchdown grab. Kincaid got in the end zone as a pass catcher. Cook scored twice on the ground. Kind of a perfect game for the Bills other than the lack of involvement for Amari Cooper. Horribly disappointing 1-catch, 3-yard effort. He should see his target share greatly increase here moving forward. And I mean the next game. On the Seattle side of things, JSN, look, he had a good game. 6 catches for 69 yards. The offense didn't do anything. They couldn't sustain drives. Their center flung a snap over Smith's head at one point, on another point on a 4th and goal, stepped on his foot. They just had problems yesterday. Couldn't run the ball. They ran the ball. The leading runner yesterday for the Seattle Seahawks was Geno Smith with 16 yards. They ran the ball for 32 yards as a team. So they were just smashed. So I guess 6 for 69 for Smith is good considering. But that was, with DK Metcalf out, it's like, come on, man. Like, everyone was starting Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you didn't get crushed. You didn't get an Amari Cooper effort. But really, even in the fantasy space, 13 points, Maybe I could have put Tyler Lockett on the screen here. Tyler Lockett got one ball for 9 yards. And, Lockett has been so good for so long. And as I have said, the second best receiver in Seahawks history, I think it's fair. Steve Largent being number one. But it looks like Lockett's kind of run his course. And again, he's 5'10", 180 pounds. And, things have to be just right. And we can start having conversations this week about dropping Tyler Lockett if DK Metcalf is going to return. If Metcalf is going to miss another game with his knee injury, we're not dropping Lockett at this point. But some of you in shallow leagues and all that, if you haven't already, it's at least something that we can discuss. Carolina, Denver. Carolina lost to the Denver Broncos 28-14. That's what we all expected to happen. Deontay Johnson didn't play because of injury. Adam Thielen's getting close to returning from his hamstring injury, but he didn't play. Bryce Young was obviously under center. The team after the game said, we're going to kind of look at everything. So they didn't say that Bryce Young is starting the next game because Dalton technically lost the start this week because of his injured finger from the car accident. I'm anticipating that Young stays the quarterback. He wasn't awful yesterday. Threw for 224, 2-2. But I think that, they were always going to go back to Young at some point, barring Dalton just being lights out, which no one should have anticipated. So now that he's back in there, I kind of think that they keep Young under center, but they didn't 100% say that after the game unless I missed it. So there's changes here that we could be dealing with. But the bottom line is Thielen and Johnson were both out, obviously the top two receivers. So Jalen Coker took over yesterday. 6 targets, 4 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. Xavier Legette also scored. But Coker's the big name because Legette's on a lot of rosters. And even if he's not on rosters, people are talking about him. Coker's somebody that no one's talking about. And when you see him being the leading receiver yesterday, you're going to say, maybe, probably not you because you're fantasy guru people, but you're going to think to yourself, maybe I'll go take a look on the waiver wire because he's going to be on the waiver wire. Remember, Johnson and Thielen were both out. And no matter what this offense looks like, Johnson and Thielen are probably 50% of the targets when they're healthy, maybe more. So be cautious with Coker. You could, throw $1 or $2, but don't get into a bidding war for a youngster who's trending upward, certainly in the dynasty and keeper space, but one that's just likely to be overwhelmed by his elderly teammates or older teammates, if you will, for target share moving forward. Bo Nix. A lot of people were hot on Bo Nix's trail. A lot of people in DFS played Bo Nix. A lot of people in season were playing Bo Nix, and Bo Nix produced 4 touchdowns again. We've talked about here on this show. I think, who was it? One of the guys last week, I even asked, is Bo Nix now beyond a streaming option as a QB2? Is he in consideration to be QB1 some weeks? And it's a question we have to seriously start asking because Bo Nix has continued to be involved on the ground. He didn't do anything. He only had 4 rushing yards, but he had a rushing touchdown. He threw for 3 touchdown passes. He threw for 284 yards. And the numbers are just there. He got Courtland Sutton involved now. To be a quarterback one, you can't go a game where you don't have an official target to your number 1 wide receiver. Is that fair to say? Because that's what happened to Sutton in week 7. Yesterday, 11 targets, 8 catches for 100 yards. Adkins had a touchdown. Every tight end on the roster for the Broncos is doing things except Greg Dulcich, the only one we all thought would do something. It's one of those weird Sean Payton things. Dulcich scored as a pass catcher. McLaughlin, Troutman, another tight end. But Bo Nix, if you played him yesterday, you won. Huge effort yesterday from Bo Nix. The Chiefs defeated the Raiders 27-20. The Chiefs moved to 7-0. I don't know if any of you saw this on ESPN in the morning. Alex Smith, the former Chiefs quarterback. Alex Smith came out on the broadcast and said, for all the people bashing Patrick Mahomes, which I know is a huge thing in our fantasy space, that Patrick Mahomes is playing the best football that Alex Smith has ever seen him play. Again, the Chiefs are 7-0. Mahomes went for 262 and 2. He had an interception that was on a tip ball, but he had a solid game, hoping for a little bit more there, but it was a solid game from him. But the big storyline was the awakeness or the continuing awakening. That's a movie, Awakening, right? Jessica Alba, where she's blind. Is that right? Or is that Robin Williams? Oh, wait, let me do this. Awakening movie. Isn't that a movie or am I losing my mind? Awakening movie. Oh, that was the Robin Williams one. Okay, Awakenings. What is the Jessica Alba movie? Now I got to look this up. Jessica Alba movies. Anyone remember this, where she's blind and she gets her sight back? I can see the picture in my head. The eye. Oh, that's right. For those of you with the eye things, the eye. Anyway, back to Kelce. 10 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown, his best fantasy effort of the season. They added DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously, it was a big storyline. Everyone wanted to play DeAndre Hopkins. We were not pushing anyone to start DeAndre Hopkins yesterday. 3 targets, 2 catches, 29 yards. He learns the offense. Those numbers and his role should grow in the offense, of course. Wasn't his day yesterday. No one on this team other than Kelce caught 5 passes. He caught 10 of them for 90 and a touchdown. And again, is Travis Kelce going to live up to draft day cost? No. Does he have a chance to still be a top 2 or 3 or even number 1 tight end? He does. He's still got a chance to be an elite tight end, even if the cost isn't matched. And that's, again, obviously injuries have helped because they've had no choice but to turn to him. But Chiefs move to 7-0. They defeated the Raiders there. On the other side of things, Alexander Mattison, I talked about earlier, Zamir White had 2 touches. So Zamir White is, and we've seen this for multiple weeks now, as they continue to bring huge chunks of the tree down. They're doing a really good job back here. They have to be pretty careful, too, because the fence is 8 feet from the house. So the guy wrangling tree bits coming down here has got to be careful not to bang him off the house, because whether or not they realize that I'm in the office with the doors sitting there staring at him. Zamir White only gets a handful of touches a week. Pure handcuff to Mattison. If you have Zamir White, sorry, I have Zamir White on every team. So I apologize for my advice with Zamir White. It has been wrong. And I'm paying the price, too, on my squads. If you have Zamir White right now, the only reason to keep him is if you have Alexander Mattison. If you don't have Alexander Mattison, because Mattison is just dominating snaps, he's dominating touches. White is just not even on the field. Mattison didn't do anything yesterday. He had 19 touches. He had 19 touches yesterday in 43 yards. He's doing absolutely nothing. He's just running into the line of scrimmage. But Mr. Pierce, the head coach of the Raiders, is totally happy doing that. So Mattison is a potential volume-based wide running back 2 flex option. Zamir White just taking up roster space at this point. Chicago and Washington, like I said earlier, I mean, Chicago lost this football game 15-18 to the Commanders. They should have lost the football game because they tried to get fancy and smart instead of just playing straight football. The Commanders didn't deserve necessarily to win the football game. Everyone's seen it now, the Hail Mary pass. Bears played it terribly. Ball bounces off everyone into the hands of Noah Brown in the end zone for a 52-yard touchdown to win the game. So the Commanders won the game. They go to 6-2. The Bears fall to 4-3. Caleb Williams was really trending in the right direction. His last 3 games prior to yesterday were very solid efforts. They had a bye week, did the Bears, right? So they come out of the bye week and look terrible. Terrible. Williams was 10 for 24, 131 yards. Didn't throw a bunch of picks, which is great, but this team did nothing through the air. Nothing. And Keenan Allen is going down as, and whether this is Allen and the offense, the quarterback, the combination, Keenan Allen, like, what happened? Keenan Allen's caught 7 passes a game for his entire career. He can't catch 5 passes in this offense. He can't catch 4 passes. I had 2 catches for 39 yards yesterday. Odunze was the leader. 3 catches, 41 yards. Cole Kmet, 1 catch for 14 yards. There's nothing. This offense was brutally bad coming out of a bye. And against the Commanders, which are one of the easiest teams to beat, they are terribly, terribly bad at stopping the pass. And the Bears couldn't pass the ball against them. So horribly disappointing effort for Caleb Williams. And all the talk and hype and the excitement that was deserved for Williams potentially moving into the QB1 ranks in the fantasy space, that's gone. After that effort yesterday, that's gone. He needs to now go out and have a 275-2 game to even get back to the point where we were at 10 days ago, because that effort yesterday just doesn't work. It doesn't work in the fantasy space, and it doesn't work when you're facing the Commanders. Terribly disappointing. On the other side of things, Jayden Daniels played through the injury. He got 8 carries for 52 yards, which is great. In the end, he threw for 326 yards and a touchdown. Remember, 52 of those yards and the touchdown were on the final play of the game. So this easily could have been a 275-yard no-touchdown effort for him, which would have been But the good news is he was out there. He played through the rib injury. He looked good. And doesn't he remind you of Lamar Jackson when he's running? Like he's slim, right? Similar-ish build. He's smaller, but similar-ish build. Kind of slides and slips his way through. Never quite gets hit. He's really good. And he continues to be really good. But his fantasy day yesterday was saved by that final player. It would have been a somewhat disappointing effort against the Bears. But at least they won the football game, and they moved to 6-2, one of the biggest surprises in the NFL. The final game to review is Dallas and San Francisco. The Niners won 30-24. They moved to 4-4. The Cowboys fall to 3-4. The Niners, almost gave this one back again at the end. It's like, what the hell's going on with this stuff? Stop playing prevent defense. On the Cowboys side of things, we had Rico Dowdle out with health. They said he was sick. Oddly, he's at the game. He's on the sidelines. He's signing autographs before the game. That was weird. It was weird. Dalvin Cook was active for the first time this season. He looked okay. Ezekiel Elliott had 10 carries for 34 yards and a touchdown. He also caught a pass. There was not. We could have talked about CeeDee Lamb, 13 for 146 and 2. Everyone knows that. Could have talked about Jalen Tolbert, who continues to be disappointing. 3 catches for 44 yards. I went to Elliott not because I think Elliott is someone you should run to the waiver wire and pick up, but because this team can't run the ball. It's another game where Elliott led the team with 34 yards rushing. Their running backs ran the ball for 46 yards yesterday. And Elliott and Cook, at certain points of their career, were all pros. At certain points of their career, were being talked about as guys that can make the Hall of Fame. They ran the ball for 46 yards last night on 16 carries. And Dowdle, who had seemingly taken over the number 1 spot with the Cowboys, he hasn't exactly been a star at all on a per-touch basis either. They can't run the football. So they got to figure this out, because for the third straight game, Dak Prescott threw at least these 2 picks. And their season is spiraling out of control. They're on the precipice of it just blowing up in their face. They got to figure things out in the backfield. It's still Rico Dowdle's backfield, I think. I think that's fair at this point in time. But really, do you want any of those guys in the fantasy space? Yeah. On the other side of things, Isaac Guerrero, by the way, 14 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown. Could have had 2 touchdowns. He went down at like the 2-yard line on that last carry to basically run the clock out. So he could have had an even bigger day. He came on because Jordan Mason for the second straight game was quote-unquote fine. But for the second straight game, even though he was quote-unquote fine, didn't play. Jordan Mason's all kinds of beat up. That shoulder ain't right. The Niners head out on their bye. Don't make the mistake of running the waiver wire to add Guerrero now, because CMC is expected to be back. That being said, if Guerrero is on the waiver wire, as I have said all season long, anytime anyone is asked, since before the season began, Isaac Guerrero should not be on the waiver wire. Can you go out and spend for a guy that just had a touchdown and 100 yards from scrimmage? No. Because again, the expectation is number 1, bye. Number 2, the return to CMC. But Guerrero might be the number 2 running back right now. I don't know if Mason's, even with the bye week, where is Mason physically? I don't know. If CMC can't play in week 10, if CMC is limited in week 10, if CMC gets hurt again, where is Jordan Mason physically? I don't know. Don't know. But the real storyline with the Niners was Deebo Samuel, because his name came up and up and up and up and up and over and over again. And we saw it last night. Deebo Samuel's numbers were okay. He had 4 carries for 15 yards. He had 4 catches for 71 yards. The numbers were okay. 10 touches, 11. And don't forget, he had a 60-yard touchdown called back on a penalty. So he should have had 140 yards of offense and a touchdown. What we saw last night, by the way, was prime Deebo Samuel. Explosive, productive, the heart and soul of the offense, and a late injury. He did leave this game late with an injury to the ribs, I think it was. A week to heal up, should be okay, but that's something. The bottom line is, if Deebo Samuel is on the field, he is in your fantasy lineup, period. It's just the way it is, okay? And we saw why last night. Now, there is the risk with the health. We saw that again. But with Brandon Ayuk done, certainly without McCaffrey on the field, the offense revolves around Deebo Samuel, right? We saw that again. And again, George Kittle had 6 catches for 128 yards and a touchdown. We talked about Guerrero. The offense revolves around Deebo Samuel. So don't make the mistake of not playing Deebo Samuel. If he is indeed active, he should always be in your fantasy lineup. Okay, so there it goes. Let's see if there's any comments other than all of you. Thank you for putting up with me today. I really appreciate it. And thank you for giving me the updates about the noise and everything like that as well. I'm sorry we had to have a kind of a wonky show. Again, we've apologized through all of that. Let's go back. We had a bunch of comments today. Okay, let's go through here. Everyone, you're all talking to each other. I like that. Tony C said, I picked up Tillman. Someone held on to him for almost 2 days and grabbed him Saturday. Wow. Why would someone drop him? That's really weird. David P says, any Halloween parties? Who do you like better for fantasy, Winston or Stafford? Not any Halloween parties this year, unfortunately. The local pub crawl, which since we moved 5 years ago, the old house was a 10-minute walk to the downtown area. And there was a great pub crawl. My lady and I actually won. They have a costume contest and everything. So there's like 5 places, not all pubs, but 5 places in the downtown area that, and 1 hour here starting at 5 o'clock, 1 hour here, 1 hour here, 1 hour here, 1 hour. And the last one stays open till 2. And, you get couples costume wins, sexiest costume, craziest costume. We won the couples costume one year. We were gnomes. So it was last night. And I actually talked to my brother and I said, we should go do it next year. Be the 2 old guys, going through what the hell. So maybe we'll do it, but no. I'm watching my Universal horror movies. I watched Dracula's Daughter last night. I watched a retrospective on James Whale. I'm watching the old school movies. I started watching Babadook. Is that it? What was that? That doesn't sound like the Babak, whatever the hell that is. I'm saying it wrong. Started watching it last night. Didn't get to it. Ended up watching Dracula's Daughter instead. Who do I prefer the rest of the way? I'll say Winston. Now, the thing with saying Winston is if your league takes points away for interceptions, that is significant. And you have to understand that if Puka and Kupp are back out there, and it doesn't look like Kupp's going to get traded right now, Matthew Stafford is just a better quarterback. He's a more stable quarterback. But because it's very likely that Winston's going to fling the ball, I'm going to slightly say Winston, though. Again, if you have a -2 for interceptions, you might have to go with Matthew Stafford. All right, let's see here. Scrolling through some of the more comments. Eric S. says, hey, Ray, I was reminded of the enjoyable experience of the sweat. I needed 17 combined from Prescott and Ferguson last night. Did not get there until the second touchdown. Seemed like a no-brainer before the game. Seemed impossible at halftime. Oh, the fun of fantasy. Yeah, and I'm glad, Eric, you didn't send notes to all of us saying, oh, you guys are terrible, which I know you wouldn't do. A lot of people do that. And let me just congratulations on the win. Eric, I'm glad that your guys came through. I'm glad that the Cowboys lost to the Niners. I also want to make sure that don't be the person. I see this every week. People will say, they'll complain to, usually it's Jeff Mans. Oh, these guys suck. And Jeff goes, it's halfway through the second quarter. And then an hour and a half later, when the guy ends up with 5 catches or 70 yards and a touchdown, the user comes back and says, oh, I was just saying that, trying to reverse curse him. Don't be that freaking idiot. Be like Eric. Suffer in silence, right? Don't be the idiot that does that comes at someone, any analyst, and is halfway through the second quarter and complains, and then comes back later and said, oh, I was just trying to. Don't. Glad you won, Eric, last night. You should have had 17 points easy. I would have said Dak Prescott could have got 17 points last night. Yeah. Ferguson, by the way, 6 catches. Great. 23 yards. Ugh. Yeah. Not good. Patio Joe says, go Dodgers. No, don't go Dodgers. Now, see, I'm in a real conflict here, Patio Joe and everyone else. Dodgers are my least favorite team. As a Giants fan, born and bred, have to be. My second least favorite team is the Yankees. By the way, Shohei Ohtani looks like he's going to play through the subluxation of his shoulder. Great news for the Dodgers. They got to get Shohei Ohtani going through the Yankees. His strikeout rate is like double what it was during the season. Ooh, horrible there. I'm just looking. Thanks again, everybody, for leaving the comments about being able to not hear the comment. Not hear the people outside cutting the trees. Greg Martinez. Plan 9 from Outer Space. Yeah, the Ed Wood movie. I've seen that multiple times. I actually have that right now currently on my DVR. It's saved so that at some point, whether I get to it before Halloween or not, I'll rewatch it again. I've got the DVD of it. I'm an old school person that has DVDs. For those of you that don't know, Ed Wood is now celebrated basically as the best, worst director of all time. There is a really good movie done by Tim Burton with Walter Matthau and Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp playing Ed Wood. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. If you're into those kind of quirky Tim Burton kind of movies, it's just called Ed Wood. But yeah, Plan 9 from Outer Space, an absolutely horrible movie that it's got a cult following because it's so bad. But that's a good one there. And then Jay, the arborist, said, thanks for the Tillman pickup. One this week. Brian, they announced that, huh? Brian Thomas is out 2 to 4 weeks. Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to have to go your word here because I'm not seeing it on my quick look here. Let's see. I'll do one more quick look. And I always appreciate it when you folks do that. If you hit up something, because again, I'm doing so many things here, it's really tough to keep an eye on the news and everything. If you do see something like that, it is really helpful if you could include a source, just so you know it's someone that whether we know or not, so we're not spreading false lies here. I'm looking. I don't see it yet. Oh, here it is. Jeremy Fowler. There it is, Jay. Thank you. Brian Thomas could, not saying will, but could missed 2 to 4 weeks, which makes you think there's no chance he's playing this week. I'll just read the tweet from Jeremy Fowler. You're on that, Jay. This was only 2 minutes ago. Jay Thomas could miss 2 to 4 weeks with a chest rib injury suffered on Sunday. Scans will determine the full extent in the next step. Thomas is also getting a second opinion. Well, he's going to miss some time. We'll see how much it is. As we discussed earlier, Christian Kirk is out. We don't know about Gabe Davis. It's about time for Evan Ingram to get 112 targets a week. As Nathan Janke of Pro Football Focus pointed out, last season, when Evan Ingram played without Christian Kirk on the field, he scored 5 more PPR points a game. So look for Evan Ingram to be a big recipient here of the injuries, and we'll continue to watch things with Brian Thomas to see if we can get some clarity on his health situation. All right, so we made it, folks. Thanks for putting up with me today. Sorry for the odd intro and the work through with me. I hope they'll get the work done today. There's a lot of work to be done. So maybe they'll have to go again tomorrow. But if they do, we will power through it the best way we can. Thanks again. Head over to fantasyguru.com. Click that subscribe tab on the subscribe tab on the top right corner. Send a note to support@fantasyguru.com, all that kind of stuff. If you can do it, we greatly appreciate it. Hopefully you at least will tell people about this free show. Spread the word a little bit. We wouldn't look askew to a few more views, eyeballs, and all that kind of stuff. And I love the fact that a lot of you end up talking to each other in the chat room too. That's great stuff. So thanks for listening today. Fantasy Sports Daily, Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork, on Facebook at facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ, on Twitter X @FantasyGuruSite. Type in Fantasy Sports Daily to your podcast network. And obviously, you can check us out over at fantasyguru.com. That Elite Plus tab at the top of the page that I was struggling to say earlier. Click on that to find all the shows cataloged there at fantasyguru.com. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Ray Flowers, fantasyguru.com. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by the one and only fantasyguru.com.